A Sicilian defense is perhaps the most common way for black to respond to e4 at the elite levels of chess play. A rock-solid line with many aggressive attacks, studied to death by all masters alike. At least, that's the general idea. But what if I told you there was a gambit so truly outrageous that almost nobody studied it? And the most common moves are complete blunders. Ladies and gentlemen, I hereby present to you the Portsmouth Gambit. Now, the main line begins with e4, c5, knight to f3, and knight to c6, which is the old Sicilian defense. Now, instead of something simple like bishop to b5 or d4, or maybe something a little less standard like d3, we play perhaps the most uncommon move here, if you allow me to scroll down. b4, less than 1% of people have played this gambit. This is the Portsmouth Gambit. Now here, almost everybody takes the pawn, although some people take with the knight. However, these things often transpose into each other. Now, if you take with the pawn, then you push d4. There are two responses here, but today we will only be covering d5, since e6 is significantly less common. So after d5, takes c4. Everybody, I mean everybody, plays en passant here. Everybody doesn't. So you take back, of course, and queen to a5 is the most common move here. Now, the best move here, believe it or not, is rook to b1. It's also the most common. Why is this good? It sacrifices the knight for seemingly no reason. Now, people always take here, and this is just something that happens. So if takes, then bishop to d2, and if queen to a3, which is, well, 99% of people play that, we're not going to cover anything else, then we're going to play d5. Now, after knight to b8, which is the overwhelmingly most common move, we're going to play queen to c2, and you'll notice that we were already winning. Why queen to c2? Well, this is threatening this bishop all the way over here, which is also, conveniently enough, a checkmate. However, we are also covering this nice little pawn here and restricting the squares the queen is able to go to. Now, everybody here plays bishop to d7. This is the most common move, and hence we will play bishop to b5. Now, some people do occasionally take on b5. This is just blunders made in one, but that's a very, very unlikely thing. Only 8% of people do that, so we're not going to cover that at all. Well, I mean, except for this. But the most common move is knight to f6, which also blunders mate. Just a million ways to blunder checkmate. And so the only thing that actually deals with this, that's in the most common replies here, I mean, if you look at the average rating here, 2000s are falling for this, 2100s, etc. And people are playing knight to a6, which is also a mistake for reasons we're not going to cover today, but king d8 is just the most popular way to stop this. And now bishop to b4, and you'll notice that this queen is actually very much trapped here. Cannot access this square, this square, this square, cannot stand on the square it's on, it's blocked by the bishop, the rook cuts everything off here, queen gets him here, queen gets 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 here, this pawn gets here, and this pawn gets here, and this knight restricts its movement furthermore. Hence, everybody has to take on b4 with check. And after takes, this is just a one queen, and this is going to be incredibly easy for you to win. Now, what about overwhelmingly common move, which is queen to d8. Of course, the game begins the same way. Here. And now after this, I'm going to look up under too much else, except here. This is where we're going to cover the deviations from the line because everything else is so common. Queen to d8. This is an immediate blunder. You're actually +3 here. Now d5, everybody plays knight to b8 here. It actually wants you to sacrifice a knight for some reason, which is pretty ridiculous, but still, knight to b8. d5 check, of course. And this is just 95% of people play this. There's nothing more to cover here. Castle. And very often you will get the move a6. Now here, instead of playing the best move, I like to play bishop to c4, just moving back one, because then people generally play b5, and just to kick you out furthermore, of course. So after bishop to b3, the most common move here is knight to f6. So we're just going to play rook to e1, which adds pressure to this file, and pins this pawn here to the king. Now this looks like it does nothing, but bear with me because now g6. Almost everybody plays g6. 56% of people will play g6 here. Now, here, d6 is the move I like to play, even if it is not the best. Because now e6 is almost guaranteed. 96% of people will do this. And so here, knight to d5 is what I recommend. Because now, after you trade, you take with the queen. And there are only 3 games in this position, so this little thing here is now going to be irrelevant. So knight to c6, which is what a reasonable person would assume to be the most common move, because it defends this rook here and gets a knight into the game. We're going to play bishop to b2, and now, of course, the engine wants you to sacrifice everything and play this very inhuman move, which is bishop to e7. No human will play that against you. We're not going to cover that. You're +5. Just go ahead and let him move the rook. It's whatever. Now, still, you have no idea. Why are you +5? Well, look at this. He has no development anywhere, and you can just open the knight here. Everything's defended. It still wants him to sacrifice the bishop. It just wants all that. But what I would assume to be the most common move here is h6. Now, of course, there have not been too many games in this position at all, since this gambit is so rare. But after we take on e6, sacrificing the knight, I would assume the most common move is to take with a pawn. Now we will sacrifice the rook! And after the bishop takes, because why else would he do anything else? Then we're going to play queen takes e6. And, of course, something we'll have to block. So we'll be assuming the bishop blocks, because that is once again what I would assume to be the most human move. Here we take on g8, the king moves back, we check again, he moves back, we take the bishop, or not. Then the queen has to block. We simply play queen to g8 here, which is a check. It forces bishop to f8. And here we just check. We hop up in everything. We take the queen. And black really just has no play here. This is just a really simple mate that you're going to have here. Now, you may not believe this gambit works whatsoever, in any sense of the word. So I'm going to show you an example game that I've put together. Of course, the study is incomplete, but I highly recommend that you study with yourself and see what works. So e4, e5, c5, Knight f3, knight c6, takes, and by the way, this was a game played between two. Let's see, which one was this? Was this game here between a 2287 and a 2219. This was a classical game with 30 minutes on the clock. Now, 2800s play this in bullet and they win all the time, but you do not want to cover an opening that only works in bullet, do you? So I figure I would give you some proof here. So d5, takes, now c4, yes, this is all the theory that we've shown you. Here, this, and knight to b8. He made the blunder, he saved the knight, this was all in classical, he spent 4 minutes of time doing this. And so, queen c2, knight to a6, realizing the threat of mate, but also realizing the threat of bishop b4, check. I mean, not check, obviously, it's not a check. It simply is a trapping of the queen. But bishop b5, and if we turn on analysis right now, we will see that we are actually +9. Despite not being able to trap the queen due to the knight's influence, or be able to take this bishop due to the rook being unveiled by the knight's movement. As he plays king to d8, we play to e5, threatening this nasty little mate here. Look at that. Look at that. Bishop covers this. The queen covers this. That is nasty. And so here he played queen to c5, trying to cut off my queen. I'm sorry, lose queen. And so after this, he simply checked him. And here we go for this. Now, it's very unlikely that you get d5 in a game. And so the opponent spent 2 minutes on this. And he played king to b6. This is a blunder. This is now mate in 4. Because now if you take the knight, then the king takes back. You have to just win the queen. And here, Android actually resigned, and Lou won the game. And he spent no more than 1.5 minutes in a 30-minute game. Because Android knew that the game was over, he simply resigned. Now, there are not enough games here, not nearly, to put together a proper study of what the average player will do. So please, if you see this video, try to play this Gambit, try to get your games added to the database, and maybe you'll find yourself in a video just like this one. Now, this has been Blundered Games. Signing off. Thank you so much.